I expect at some point I'll record one where my hair will be all messed up, and then I'll just not include the little box in the corner because it's not really that useful anyway. Welcome to week 12, section 11 of JavaScript CSCI E-3. So are there any questions? 3B was due on, what, Monday-ish? And 4A, has that even been put out yet? And last week, the weekly assignments started you in with a little bit of jQuery. And who has used jQuery before? jQuery UI is built off of jQuery, so that counts. You copied and pasted a jQuery UI component? Yeah. Then you're a pro. Did it have a $sign in it? If it had a $sign in it, then you're golden. So I thought does anybody have any questions? If nobody, yeah.
This is more of just like, I guess, a general theory or question. I'm trying to start in or work on my own project and store stuff to local storage.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is it sort of normal or natural to have, because I know we try to avoid having declared variables outside of functions or event handlers, but I can't seem to do it without having an array declared just in the general script. Is that acceptable or normal? Or
That's okay. Yeah, this is a question about whether or not it's okay to have a variable in the global space. And you can, but a better way to do it would be to wrap the entire script in just an anonymous function. That way it doesn't leak out into actual global space.
So would you, like self-invoking?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would just look like function something, you put all your code in there, and then just that, self-invoking function. Which is very similar to the no conflict problem for week 12. If you've looked at that yet? Great. I didn't really want to cover it anyway. Have you looked at the cute little quiz that was on W3 Schools? Yeah, W3 Schools. Was that for week 12 or week 11? It's this week. Because that has like no gradable component, I'm fine going through that quiz if you want and talking about the answers, and I'll tell you which one I got wrong and which ones I don't really know the answer to and just guessed. If you want to do that. Also, we could do what I had sort of planned. I'm not even sure I have enough time to do it, but going through 3B using jQuery as quickly as I possibly can.
I'd like to do that just because I think I'm having trouble making the leap because we've been doing JavaScript so much to like now trying to get the jQuery into that. Like the problems I understand, but
okay.
Now like just actually seeing more implementation I think would be helpful.
Okay.
So the other thing that goes with that is there a way to do faster event listeners in jQuery?
Faster event listeners?
Well, I mean, jQuery is all about doing things in less code.
In less code, yeah.
So is there a way, not that the event listener works faster, that you can just write it more quickly?
It's a little faster. I wouldn't, I mean, it's less characters.
Well, that's good.
Add event listener becomes on, so that's a good savings, right? But they use the same sort of format for that.
Pretty much the same.
And there's some helper functions in there, like you can use click and something dot click, and then that instead of something dot on click. But I don't know if that's really a huge benefit, right? I stick to doing on everything just because they don't have these little helper functions for all of the possible events, so I don't want to accidentally put one in and be like, oh, darn it, I've just lost 5 seconds of my life. Okay, so I tried to sort of set it up so that I could do this quickly. The first part was passwords must be 8 characters, and if the 2 fields don't match, we get immediate feedback. You've all done the assignment, I'm assuming, at this point. You're not planning on turning it in late. You wouldn't be able to use jQuery for it anyway, so this won't be super helpful if you do plan on turning it in late. So you know that there's like a hidden span tag out here and out here with the error message in it, and it's got the class of hint on it, which I don't understand why that's in there twice. Nobody knows. Let me remove that and add that. All right, so password must be 8 characters. How is that done for this password field? We set up a
We do $sign currency.
what was that? Yeah, PWD1. Is it just PWD1? We're trying to get the ID, right? Want to get it off of ID. And if we were going to put, a selector in CSS for the ID, how would we put it? It would be pound, right? Yeah. So that's how we would put it over here. And then on what event?
Use blur.
On blur? Blur's okay. I was wondering that myself because I did it with key up, and I didn't feel it was too annoying, but a user might. And usually when you're on these forums, they do it on blur, I think.
You
Right.
see it out there a lot though on the key up too. You're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah, it could go either way.
Well, that article, which was like a survey of the people filling out the forms, like most people find it annoying to get feedback before they even had a chance to like fully implement it, I think.
Yeah, I can understand how people would find that annoying to get the feedback too quickly, especially if it's in big bold red. It's like I didn't have a chance to get to 8 characters. So okay, on blur, we're checking what? See, I didn't actually do it. I actually made a variable for this. So var 1 equals blah.
Did you, stepping back one step, would you wrap that in a ready, jQuery ready?
I wouldn't do that in a JS fiddle because if you notice, it's already being executed on load. So if I wrapped it in I could change what this does, how this operates. I could just put it.
I meant on a standalone.
Yeah, on a standalone thing. Yeah, typically you wrap most things in a
And
document
this
on
whole
ready.
chunk then
Would just go right into that. Yeah, and that sort of covers the whole thing we were talking about with the anonymous function. If it's in a document ready, then it doesn't need to be in an anonymous function because it's in a function already, and it's.
Did you put all your other functions
Dep-
But I've been doing it as like putting it
Yeah.
on functions, then having the on ready, which is the basic like.
that's the better way to do it, but it doesn't matter. For something this small, it doesn't matter. If you're building out a more robust application, you're going to want to put the functions that you're calling in a different file, and then just have the onReady execute the things that happen immediately, like the initializing of the page. And
And then you would import the other file in the on ready?
yeah, you would
Or
you would
before
im-
the on ready?
you would import it in a script tag in the HTML, right? And you would just make sure that that was before
Okay.
where you're executing your onReady.
Did you say before the onReady or after? Did you import it? You'd have to import it.
Well, it wouldn't really matter if it was before or after the onReady. It would get loaded before the onReady was executed, because it would wait for all of those to get loaded
What
before.
about when you're protecting the $sign? Does that all remain true then?
When you're protecting the $sign with what?
You know, so I mean, I think you have to wrap, you know, wrap your code in an anonymous function in order to protect the $sign. Pass the jQuery in for the dollar
Right,
sign.
for the no conflict
Yes.
thing? Yeah. That would be separate. I mean, it doesn't really affect the onReady.
So you just do everything the way you just said, and then do that too, basically.
So sorry, you're putting the on ready in your actual HTML document, or you're importing
I would
two
probably,
documents, one for
yeah, I
the
would probably
functions
be
and
importing one for the functions, for the classes, whatever
and
you're,
then the on ready.
and then another one for the onReady. Sometimes. It depends on the situation, really. Like if you're onReady and then your initialization is just one line, sometimes it doesn't really matter. You just throw it into the HTML, and sometimes it actually makes more sense to put it there. Okay, so onBlur function. What are we doing? We're checking the length. So you'll notice I named this variable with a $sign, and that's a convention that some people use. I honestly don't use it that often, but I figured I would do it for this class because I feel like it's a good convention and I probably should be doing it. It just denotes that this is a
Okay.
this is a jQuery object, and it's not like a get element by ID object. It's not a DOM object. It's a jQuery object, which is different. So a jQuery object is going to have all of these jQuery functions associated with it, whereas a DOM object will have just the DOM functions.
Then everybody will think you're ready PHP.
Yeah, hopefully they're not thinking that. In a JavaScript setting, if you see a variable starting with a $sign, it almost always means it's a jQuery object. So password1 dot val dot length is what we want to be using. So on Blur, if the length is what? If it's less than or equal to 8, then, or if it's greater than. If it's greater than 8.
Are
You want
you
it
doing
to
a
do
message?
8, right?
It's less than it for the message.
No, if it's,
For the good condition.
yes, I'm sorry. I'm getting it mixed up with the bio one later, sorry. Less than or equal to
Not
8.
equal.
Not equal, yes. I don't know. So length is less than 8, then we want to show that error, right? And what was that error? It was a span with a class of hint, but with an ID of PW1 hint. So you just want this one. So we're going to say var pwd1h equals. That, and then, so the hint class has a display of none and a color of red. So this is not how I would have done it. I would have had a hint class that was just the red, and then a hide class that was the display, so that I could use remove class and add class for the changing of the, or show hide. But we can use show hide, right? So we do one h dot show. So now if I have 4 and I move away from it, password is too short. Of course, if I have what, 8, it shouldn't do it? Yay, it doesn't do it. Okay. But of course the problem is, I moved away from it. Oh, I fixed it, and it's not there, so we say else. Hide.
And it is better to use hide than say like remove or something like that.
Well, that didn't work, did it? Oh, I didn't have enough. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, okay, fine. Miscounted. Sorry.
It's better to use hide than say remove. Something else.
In general, those are just convenience functions. You could also do, I don't know if you would. .css
In either case, it gets
display.
It
It does the same thing, except with show and hide, you can actually add animations to it, which I'm not going to do for this. I don't want to get into that. But they have stuff built in that make it just a little bit prettier. You can make it fade in, fade out. It's a little bit nicer. All right, so that one's done. Now we need to make these two, make sure that they're the same, right? So how would we do that?
So is it preferable to do the length test if at all possible as opposed to using a regular expression?
What kind of regular expression would you use besides length? For just, if you're just getting length.
Well, like if you were saying 8 characters, but you wanted less than 50, because right now, for example, the person would enter, unlimited number of characters.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about somebody entering an unlimited amount of letters for a password.
No, but I'm just wondering if, like, if length, for example, is preferred in terms of code efficiency versus regular expression, is it all possible, or like if we use it here, would it really matter?
I would say don't use a regular expression unless you have to, unless it makes it significantly easier. Yeah. And in this case, checking length is easy enough that it doesn't seem like it needs it. It seems like it would be an overcomplication of what you're doing, I think.
You should use stuff like have a number, have some capital letters, then it probably.
Right, yeah. If you're doing something specific with, you don't want certain letters, if you want to make sure that it's a capital. Was that a requirement? I didn't actually look at this.
No, not in
No,
this.
okay.
But oftentimes the special characters are required in passwords, so you can designate those special characters in regular expression.
Yeah. If you were checking it for special characters, then that would be the way to go. So for this one, let's do it on key up. How do we do that?
PW1.val equal to 2.
All right, if they are equal, then let's say if they're not equal, because that would make more sense for this. Then we want to do the same thing that we did here, right? Except with the other one. I hate this spacing on JS Fiddle. It drives me nuts.
WD2H, right?
Here. Why is it? That's weird. It's not quite where it should be. Anyway, that's fine. So this should be W2, and then else. Yeah, so say ASDF, 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 and then it goes away. That's there. Passwords don't
Going
match.
back to password 1 and changing that, that should show you that, right? Because
It should.
it's
It
not
doesn't
on
right now.
on key up of password 1 though.
Right. So in order to do that, you would want to create a listener function, make it that, and then call it, and then do it for both. ASDF, 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 and yeah, it's got the problem where it's giving you immediate feedback, but deal with it. All right, that was the first one, and we're only 20 minutes in. All right, any questions, or should I go on? All right, so text area, that was, I think the ID for it was bio. And how do you want to do this? On key up? Is that how you did it? On change. Okay.
You want the constant updating of that span.
Yeah,
So it has to be up.
So you're saying key up?
Yeah, that's right.
So what do we want to do? We need to do two things here, right? First, let's update that span. What's the name of that span? Chars left. So on key up, we want to get the number of characters. How do we do that?
Same way it's above the, same way you did it.
Bio.val, we'll get the
So,
dot length. Yeah. So let's say var left, how many left? That's not the number that's left, it would be 140 minus that, right? That's how many are left. And then chars left dot val. No, wait, not dot html. And that's vaguely the same as inner HTML for a regular DOM element, except it's a function and not a actual variable. Say left.
If left blank, does it have the same effect of clearing HTML? If you left that function blank.
If I left that function blank, it would be doing something different. It would be getting the HTML. If I wanted to make it blank, I would do that. I would give it a blank string. So that seems to work. All right. And then the other part was stopping the typing at 140. We're going to stop it, I think, at 10, so I don't have to type 140 characters. So how do we do that? Do we still do that on an on-key up? We do it in the same one?
If x greater than 10, using slicing or slicing.
If this length is greater than 10, you want to be cutting the string?
Just do 0 to 9.
Oh, I see. I see what you did. Okay. Is that how everyone did it?
That sounds better than the way I did it, actually. I subtracted, in this case it would be 10 minus the length. And then if the remaining is less than -1, stop.
How did you stop? How did you stop?
How did I stop?
Yeah.
I did string remaining. So basically, it basically got to that point and then we didn't go any further because it kept going. It stopped the character.
How did it stop the character?
You replace it, so
You replaced the HTML or the value with.
with and I use the string function with capital Letters. So
Which function did you use?
string,
Just string?
yeah.
So you did.
So
Hold on.
basically, it replaced it with 140 characters, no matter what. If you were above 140 characters, or in this case 10, right? If you're above 10. But this is less efficient the way
So yours was like
Not
substring.
substring.
You didn't. You just used string. And that was it.
That's what I found out.
That was able to get you.
It's I think capital S.
I'm confused. I don't think that does anything. You sure you don't mean like?
You want to see it?
Sure. Sure. Oh no, I stood up. Okay.
See it there?
String length value, string remaining. So remaining you did 40 months. Equals string remaining? I'm confused. Wouldn't remaining be a number?
Yes. Yes.
And so how did it?
It converts it to a string and then it replaces it. So this is on key up, right?
Huh. Okay.
I didn't say it was good. I just said
I don't think I understand that solution, but if it worked, that's awesome. Your way, I understood, I think.
I didn't do it. I opted for the show the negative link amount
Oh, you opted? Was there an
Well,
option?
They said we could either like stop the text, or you could report like how many characters you've
Oh,
gone
I see.
over.
I see. That's not fair. Shouldn't let you choose. I see. All right, so that's why you were okay with key up. Because my solution was using key press or key down, and then I could use the event prevent default to stop it from actually making the key. But on key up you can't use prevent default. That's why I was surprised you all got it to work with on key up, because I didn't even think of doing like a substring or whatever you did. So okay, substring of this would be like, geez, it'd be like 0, comma the length minus 1, I guess, or minus 2. I don't know. I think it would be minus 2, because minus 1 would be the last index, and then minus 2 would be the index before that. Maybe? Maybe. Let's find out. So it shouldn't go past 10, right? Yeah, it's... I can fight it.
If you start typing 5 characters, I mean, it probably would, but and you paste more than.
Yeah.
Would that catch that?
No, probably not. Good point.
Well,
Ah.
but it would though, because you have to control V to paste it in, right?
Yeah, but it's
The
not...
keys would come up,
It doesn't seem to be detecting it. That's interesting.
So at least my solution did work.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is proper because it's kind of, it's kind of rude to the user. But what I did was I just chopped it off and told the user, you went over, and I cut off whatever was left over.
Right. But did you do it on Blur?
I did it on.
What was the event that you did?
I did it on. Sorry, I think it's Kira.
Then why isn't key up detecting that for me? Console log E. So ACF. Copy, paste. Yeah, it's not firing on a paste. That's sad.
What if we did it, because this key up only applies to certain keys?
So it is making the calculation over there, right? Because when you get past the amount, it goes into negative.
Which is weird, because it's saying that it's not registering the.
Yeah, it's stuck.
No, not now. It was.
Yeah. It's not firing the key press when I paste in. And I mean, it wouldn't if I did if I just did paste, right? Because I'm not actually pressing it.
What if we tried change?
That one doesn't work for this. It doesn't seem to be firing at all.
What is the equivalent in jQuery?
I don't think change works on text areas. I think that only works for like selects. I don't know, I guess you would need to put in another one to search, to check it on Blur probably. Make sure somebody didn't paste in a ton of stuff.
Did we try on key down?
I did. I tried on key down. Neat. There's probably a paste one too. I don't know it and I don't want to look it up. But I'll bet you there's one. Anyway, that's basically done. Moving on. Selecting another select. This was probably the longest one. I think you had the option to not do one, right? You only had to do 4. and then you could have done the rest for an absurd amount of extra credit. Let's see. So how did you guys do this one? What was it called?
I did arrays.
First select and second select?
I did arrays and I passed it
If value, whatever first select is true, like either that or that value, then I carry it out for the behavior.
Did you set it up beforehand, or did you populate it in the JavaScript?
I set the first one up for him, but the second one I just populated on like when one of the first things was
Yeah.
chosen.
Second select. So let's, the way I did it was I created an object literal, that had two values in it, I guess. A key that was a string, and then an array of whatever. Actually, I'm not sure if those numbers will work. Let's not play with that. That semicolon shouldn't be there. I'll fix it in a second. So I've got this object which basically describes what I'm going to have, right? I've got the first the values for the first one in this as this key, and then the values for the second one as an array for that key. So that way I just
Can you then make that a jQuery object by putting it in the resource, or because it has arrays and it's a like specified object, it can't be turned into a jQuery object?
turning this into a jQuery object? I don't.
Could you theoretically?
No, a jQuery object is almost always, I say almost always, I'm thinking always, it's always referring to a DOM element. It's a representation of a DOM element, and this is not a representation of a DOM element. At least not directly. So for each object, that would be, I would use a for in for that. Index in object. Then I want to populate the first one. So to do that in jQuery is basically the same as it is in normal DOM stuff. It's let's say var option equals So what I'm doing is I'm creating a jQuery object, and in order to create that, all I'm doing is wrapping this object this DOM object that I'm creating on the fly in a jQuery selector. So it's kind of the same thing I was doing here when I was creating these jQuery objects, except the selector is not looking for something in the DOM, it's actually creating it right there. So option dot val is index, I guess. Oh, we need to give it text too. So option dot and child. Document dot create text node index. And then I need to actually add it to, I need to add the option to the first.
You need to set the attribute too, right? The value, but you need to do that in the DOM.
The value set here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So will that work? I kind of hope it doesn't because I'm expecting it not to. Okay, good. It doesn't. See, I'm using append child on a jQuery object and not a DOM object. So in order to get around that, a jQuery object is a selector. So it actually returns an array of, it has in its, in the jQuery object an array of the actual DOM elements. So I can, because I know that option has only one, I know that the DOM element that it's referring to is 0 at index 0. And I know that first is only 1, so I can use 0 on that too. So by saying this, I'm actually getting the first DOM element that this matched, that this has in it, and it only has 1. So does that make sense? Did I explain that okay? Ish. That's all I'm going for. Just ish.
Can you actually convert a jQuery object back into a DOM object?
I mean, you can just say, once you have that first, you can say var first equals first 0, and that's a DOM object. All right, so that set it up. We could also remove the dash dash, but I don't think I have time. So let's keep moving. What do I need to do next? I need to set up a listener for what? Change, yeah. So on first, what am I doing? I'm looking at my cheat sheet, yeah.
So can you, the other question there is, does bubbling and capture work?
Does if I don't, that's a good question. I think it's always bubble with jQuery.
Always bubbles?
Yeah.
So you need to set it on the lowest. You need to set it on the lowest. Top.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always bubble.
And if you have two DOM elements that are siblings, is there, you have to have two say you have a div and two divs within that div.
Yeah.
And you want to put as few listeners as possible, or in this case, on, right? What would you do? You have to have two in that particular case, right? Because it always goes up. it always bubbles, you were saying, on always bubbles.
Yeah.
And so you'd have, if you put it on the siblings, one of the siblings, that really wouldn't do you, because one sibling would be left off.
I don't think bubbling would affect what you're talking about. What do you want to put a listener on? You've got a div, and you've got two divs within that div,
Yeah,
and you want to put a listener on one of those child divs,
Mhm.
and you want to just have one listener that will check both of them.
Yeah.
See,
if you were capturing when you were going down in regular JavaScript, you could put it on the top div, right?
Right.
But you can't on when there are two that are siblings. As far as I don't know the answer to that. I mean actually, that's my graduate assignment is working on something like that. So
Let me get back to you on that,
okay,
because I've only got a few minutes left, and
okay,
yeah, and that I think I'll have to think about a little bit more. Okay. Okay. So on change, we want to populate the second selector. So we will do the same thing we did here, right? For each of these. Yeah. So object we have to get E, something E, right? We have to get, come on.
Test what the user chooses.
Oh, we already know what the, okay. So object first val. That's all we'll need. Dot for each, we'll say. So we're going through each of these. We basically just want to do this ish.
what is object if you
Object is referring to this object up here.
oh it's weird.
Yeah. So item. Is that it?
Is it for each or is it each?
It's for each here because I'm using this is an array.
It's not a jQuery.
It's not a jQuery
Okay, gotcha.
object. If it were a jQuery object, you're right. Each would be the right one. But because this is an array that I'm getting right here, then for each is the.
That really gets confusing.
Yeah. Would it be more confusing if they were the same? Because you'd be calling two different methods. And
Right. But it's just
all right, did that work? Let's syntax error. What's the syntax error? Oh, great. That's not helpful at all. Do you see anything? For each. Yes. I did for each wrong. I closed it right, but I didn't start it right. Yeah. So now if I change this, it's got these options. And then in order to do it correctly, I would want to actually clear it in between changes so that I don't end up with just a lot. But again, not much time. So any questions? All right, have a subsection appear if a checkbox is checked. In order to do this, I just added a checkbox next to contact info and said I would just open that up. That one's easy. What do you think? I think we've already done all this in here already. Do what?
So do the same type show.
Yeah, so actually this is overkill. It's,
I think jQuery would have a lot of this. Just do it.
whatever. Okay, so I need like a listener, right? And on click for, or on change maybe for whatever that is a show check. That's what I gave it. What?
Just having a toggle would work.
I always forget how toggle works. Let me see if I can get it right on the first try. Contacts, right? Maybe. Just like that, I think, maybe. Yeah, that works. Trying to break it, but nope. Okay, seems okay. That's good. I was going to do show high with an if statement, but toggle is perfect for that. So reformat phone number. I don't know. Any questions so far? Do we want to do check to make both or make sure both aren't blank, or do we want to do the reformat phone number, or do we want to talk about anything else? 6? Any? Okay. I'll include my jQuery solution on the I'll link it. Yada yada. Okay. This is just to make sure that either phone or email have been selected right. So okay, so we probably want to do when you click this button, it happens. It checks it when you click that button. Well, but this is actually a submit, right? So we don't really want to do it on a click. What would be better is if we did it on the form when the form submits. So what's the form? The form has no ID, but it does have a name. So we can grab it with a name. I want to say name equals on submit. So when that happens, we want to just check phone and email, right? It's not like a validation, right? It's just to make sure that something is in each of them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I don't think it cared if it was valid or not. So it would just be if phone dot val does not equal blank, or
val parentheses return true or false anyway.
Wouldn't that be an object though? I mean, it will exist, right? If you just do without the val, it's gonna return true, wouldn't it return true? If you just did.
If I did it without the val,
Yeah, I'm
then
saying it would.
then that would
always
be-
true.
You don't have to.
it'll always be true, yeah.
Not equal.
Regardless of if it has a value or not.
So it has to be.
It has to be val, yeah, but I think what you're saying is I don't need this part, right?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. So maybe. I think this is more explicit, but that might work. It might not work in all cases.
Do you want more or else?
Hmm?
Do you want more or else?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we're only
One would
we're
be
not
the-
required to have one.
Then,
so
because
I
the
think-
end is, we want to do the error condition.
Well, we only need one of them to be valid, right? So, or would make more sense for this, I think. No.
You don't need both.
Well, then you need negative on both.
Yeah, I guess I don't need anything here, so I could do an and.
Oh,
Negative on both, one argument.
it's negative.
But you want the end there.
You have to have in there because you have to have negative on both.
Negative?
You have to have, you have to have 0 on both.
Well, it depends which
What if
way
I
you're
put,
doing it, though,
yeah, what if
because
I, what if I had a phone number of 0?
But you're checking to see if they're both, if it's grade negative, aren't you?
But you're looking for blank.
Yeah, but you can do it either way, because if you do it the or, then one or the other is present, so go ahead with the submission, and then the else clause would be show the failure.
Right. Depends on-
Yeah, it depends on what you want in the if and what you want in the else, I guess. Well, we don't really need an else if we have an and, though, right?
But don't we need a not?
So this would be like, yeah, these would have to both be not, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
That's
the error
right.
condition.
That's right.
Okay.
What did you call it? Error condition.
So then we want to show some error. I think I put something here. Oh yeah, I put a span after both of these with a class of email or phone. So with that I can say email or phone dot show. Else hide. Well, I guess hide is unnecessary in this case because it would just submit the form.
You would get other validation messages that show.
But this I should do an e dot prevent default, right? And then the other one wouldn't be a prevent default.
You could just so you needed that, otherwise it shows a period.
Oh, right.
That's what happens when you do submit, right? Everything has to be right.
Well, it doesn't actually care if they're the same or not. So did that work?
There's no error messages.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. It's not like a hidden thing. It's just I need to do like an HTML error something. So, come on, seriously? There. That's about right. And then if I put in something here, so that works. Anyway, moving on. Any questions about jQuery and what I did with it here, or about 3B, or about, I don't know, anything.
That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Cool.